Hello, and welcome to CHN, Chico's least watched and most overrated news station. Today we're going to be looking at some of the COVID rates in Ireland. And later, at 11, is lasagna really just spaghetti flavored cake? What we found may surprise you. I'm going to turn you over to our co-host, Bob Stevenson, and he is going to give you some insight into it.
Thanks, Bob. I guess it's true what they say. The camera really does add 10 pounds, doesn't it? How's it going? As you can see, I'm in Ireland here and definitely not in front of a green screen. And I'm here to tell you about the COVID-19 rates in Ireland. So first thing we got to talk about is the population size. So the Republic of Ireland and Northern Ireland get about as well together as toothpaste and orange juice. So as you can see, the Republic of Ireland has about 5 million, Northern Ireland has closer to 2 million, and then together about 6.78 million people. If we're comparing that to the US, it's pretty modest size. The US currently is sitting at 328 million. So how about the COVID cases as of September 30th? So in Ireland, you're looking at 34,313 cases with 1,800 deaths. And those are all pretty much centered around Dublin. County Dublin and Kildare here, which is the county directly outside of Dublin, are holding a little more than 1/3 of the cases there. Now, Dublin's kind of the main point of entry into Ireland, kind of the main airport, as well as some of the major ports as well. Over here in the corner here, we got the United States cases with 7.26 million and 206,000 deaths. So quite a bit more than Ireland itself, but we'll take a look at some of the rates and we can compare those because that might be a better depiction of where Ireland is standing compared to the United States. And we'll have a bigger slide comparing the two later on. So new cases as of August and September. So just recently, Ireland has gotten a kind of an influx in cases. So we got 7,610 new cases in these past 2 months. However, in the month of April, they had the most amount of cases with 17,333. Now, comparing that to the United States, this past 2 months, the United States has had a little over 2.5 million new cases, and July has been our worst year here. As you can see, this is where I'm talking about. This is April. Is kind of they had a big spike early on. A lot of countries started taking note of how many cases they had somewhere around in March. So pretty early on, a bunch of cases, and then kind of flattened out. And then just seeing kind of another spike here. Not as bad as it was before, but definitely something to keep a look at. Now, how about the mortality rate? So the mortality rate is the deaths occurring at a given period. So in our case, when COVID-19 has been taking like records of, and then the size of the population. And then in our case, we're going to times it by 100,000 people because that'll give us a nice close to a round number to compare. So 1,800 deaths over the population, 6.78 million, times it by 100,000, we get 26.5 deaths per 100,000 people. So, I mean, death is never a good thing, but this rate is not too terrible. If we're comparing that to the United States overall, the United States does have quite a big jump with 67.7 deaths per 100,000 people. So quite a bit more if we're comparing those two. Prevalence. So I took the liberty of choosing April 16th as a date to kind of observe here. And that date was the day that Ireland had the highest number of recorded cases. So in our case, we're going to take the number of cases for that day and divide it by the number of people in the population, again, times by 100,000. So 1,040 people were diagnosed that day, with 6.78 million times it by 100,000, we get 15.3 people per, I should say 100,000 people. And then in the United States, it was 9.7. So back in April, Ireland was actually getting hit worse than the United States, which does make sense. If you remember back a couple months ago, you were hearing a lot about Europe and how they were getting hit by COVID-19. So those numbers do kind of check out a little bit if we're looking back a couple months ago. Looking at the overall incidence rate, this is just the number of people who have contracted the disease overall. So as you can see, the number of new cases of the disease. So this is the entire time that we've been recording data, and then the time, or each time people were observed, or the total amount of population. Or again, we're going to times it by 100,000 here. So 34,000 cases divided by 6 million. So for Ireland, we got 505.64 cases per 100,000 people, which is about 1 in 200 people. So not too terrible again. United States, you're looking at 2,212 cases per 100,000 people. So quite a big gap if we're looking at overall. Again, the United States has more people, but there is a higher rate if we're looking at incidence rates for the United States versus Ireland. So we're looking, again, incidence rates, but this time just for the month of August. So 2,746 cases in August. So you can see here, 40.47 cases per 100,000 people in the month of August for Ireland. United States, again, higher, going to be 439 cases per 100,000 people for August. So United States has been getting hit a little bit worse later on than early on. So recently, this would check out as well. If we're looking at September, which would be this month, we got 4,864 cases. So getting hit a little bit, Ireland's getting hit a little bit more this month than last month, with 771 cases per 100,000 people. United States, again, going to be a little bit higher if we're comparing. I'm going to head back to the slide for August. United States actually dropped in September compared to August, while Ireland has risen. So what's Ireland doing to stop the spread or to limit the spread? They're doing the typical social distancing. They're doing keeping 2 meters away, face masks. However, they're also implementing punishments. So 2,500 euros or up to 6 months imprisonment, or a combination of both, for violating social distancing or not sheltering in place when you need to. Again, they're making laws, not just suggestions, mandating face coverings on public transportation and in shops or in other indoor settings. They do have different restrictions for different counties as well, which you don't see too much in the United States, but in Ireland they have completely different kind of restrictions for different counties. Like if you look at Dublin, who is seeing a large spike, a lot of shops and pubs are closed, versus the countryside where they have little to no cases at all. They're almost back to just normal life. So kind of an interesting take on that. The United States, it's, at least in California, you're seeing a lot of, it's all kind of the same as far as restrictions go. Everyone's wearing face masks, even if there's a county that doesn't necessarily have any cases at all. So kind of interesting. So here's the slide I was talking about comparing the United States and Ireland. Population size, cases, deaths. Obviously, the United States is going to be a little bit higher just because they have a lot more people. Mortality rate, though, these are the rates that we're going to be looking at. So I just pulled a couple kind of key points from the last couple of slides. Mortality rate, United States is quite a bit higher, a little bit under 3 times as high as Ireland. And then incidence rate is, again, quite a bit higher than Ireland. So United States hasn't been doing as well of a job as Ireland controlling the spread. Again, they have more people. However, it's, as you can see by the numbers, they're not doing as well of a job controlling it. So possible interventions. So Ireland right now doesn't have their borders closed to everyone, and one thing that they could do was just close the borders completely to other European countries. Europe in general has been getting a lot of COVID rates, so closing the borders, at least temporarily, should help limit the spread of incoming cases into the island. Another thing that they could do is close pubs. A lot of pubs are still open. And I mean, they're pretty popular. And if you've ever been to Ireland, there are a ton of them. And closing pubs, again, just for a little while could make a pretty big difference. That's going to be it. Back to you, Bob.
Well, that really just was a bunch of info, wasn't it? The studio pays him way too much. Well, that's going to be it for this show. Later, when we come back, are doorknobs really what they say they are, or something much worse? And breathing, are you doing it wrong? What we found may surprise you. Stay classy.